It's not updating then.
Only Josh Elliott can sort of casually walk through the studio when we're on the air. You guys ready for me? I'm here. I'm in the house. Josh Elliott, NBC Sports, joining the program. How are you, Josh?
Good, but look at you.
Hey, man.
I'm so proud of you.
Oh, here we go.
I am. I'm proud.
Even after I kind of unloaded on you yesterday?
Kind of?
I did.
We're going to go with kind of?
Well,
if by kind of,
it's a
you mean
modifier.
completely?
A lot?
Completely emptied the bag, I believe. The bag was empty.
Well, I didn't hear from you for a couple of days.
Listen,
It was
first of all,
it was radio silence. And
Yeah, can we hear about that, Josh?
Okay, how many people, I guess I'm the only one, direct mail. Twitter is a great thing. Twitter's amazing, okay? Can we all agree?
Yeah.
But contacting via direct mail,
Right.
The DM.
The DM. I did do a
direct
little
message.
I did do
whatever.
some DMing with
Yeah,
you.
the DM. Like I don't see my DMs.
All right.
And so suddenly I'll look down and go, oh wow, and then there are a lot of people perhaps not happy because I didn't get, but I didn't see it.
Mhm.
I'm always there for you.
I know.
And so what do you do? This is I
See-
come with love, with pride in young Chris Mannix. Look at what you've become now, and what do I get? Yesterday,
Well, see,
destroyed.
when you didn't respond right away, I started to process a little bit. Now, I just started to wonder, did Josh want this slot? I mean, there's a lot of talk when you came over to NBC that you were running and gunning for Dan Patrick's gigs, and
With all due respect, I mean, I wanted Fritzy's slot, and so when I was asked to be Fritzy this week, I mean, it momentarily upset me. I could have been Perloff. I could have done the hipster thing with the whole, the question of the day.
yeah,
Could have done that,
yeah.
but
And you've got the writing chops to be the show blogger,
barely
staff writer, Sports Illustrated,
everything in the
show
form of a
blogger.
question.
sort of, it kind of runs like that. Man, glad you could be here though, my friend.
It's good to be here.
Yeah.
It's good to be here for you. And again, just so everybody knows, right? So I meet young Chris Mannix. Started at Sports Illustrated there back in the day. There's a very specific watering hole in the Midtown area.
Are we allowed to mention it?
I think so, right?
Rosie O'Grady's
Rosie
we're talking
O'Grady.
about? Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
54th and 7th.
Yeah.
And, the strange and rather vampiric hours that Sports Illustrated folk work. Monday nights, the magazine would close. So those were sort of our Friday nights.
Mhm.
And, a long line in the bullpen, such as it was, all the great writers that had rolled through there. You were that young addition to the bullpen, and you were earmarked for greatness from the moment we met. I can tell you that for sure.
Just following in your illustrious footsteps, Josh.
Not very.
Just following
Not,
your,
not
following
very
your lead there.
illustrious.
This is
Footsteps.
actually around your 1-year anniversary, I believe, in your
It is.
return to the sports realm. Have you enjoyed the bounce back?
I have. It took a while. I was worried that I wouldn't be able to sleep again.
Mhm.
It had been from the morning sports centers at the mothership into Good Morning America for a few years. Those were a lot of consecutive wake ups that should be, it's the punishing part of an otherwise phenomenal life. So I was worried about a year ago. I'm like, wow, have I just completely damaged my sleep cycle? Will I never be able to sleep again? And that lasted 0 days, turns out. 0 days. And now my body drinks in sleep like it's still, like it's this nectar from the gods. Like, yes, what is this REM you speak of? So
Well, you've found a great niche with, doing the Kentucky Derby next month, and you've done Sunday Night Football this year. And I tell people all the time when, sometimes people go from a writing gig to a TV gig or jump around a little bit because they're not quite as good at what they do. You were an excellent writer when you were at SI. If you were still at SI, you'd be senior writer up there, right at the top of the masthead. If you were at Good Morning America still, you'd be right up the top there. ESPN, you're doing the Sports Center. The one thing I could never get over with you, though, is did you really care about some of the interviews you did on Good Morning America? Because I know you, and you were Teddy Bruschi was a good friend of yours in the day, and you wrote some terrific stories in the Patriots' heyday in the early part of their title runs. That I could see you getting attached to. Interviewing Nick Jonas about an album, I can't see it.
Okay. So the success or failure of really in any endeavor, but certainly in this endeavor, is commitment, right? Like, I'm not going to go on, say, a morning show where there are a lot of different things that you do end up talking about, discussing, perhaps interviewing subjects about during the course of a day. Like, you'd walk down the hall when you got there, and there was Katy Perry and Henry Kissinger and a marsupial, and you go, oh, it's Tuesday. Yep. So that was the life, and that to me was interesting. I like the idea of it, of my professional life at that point being like a blackboard that you just erased every day. No, was I always super duper into 5 spring looks for less? No.
I think I saw you making an omelet at one time.
But so interestingly, right? The reason one of the reasons I took the job was because I am completely interested in interviewing the president. I met the Pope. I covered his election. I loved that moment just as a journalist. As much as I hated the story sometimes that I had to cover, I was in Newtown that afternoon. I was in Boston that afternoon. I saw the worst of humanity, and as a journalist, felt compelled and, frankly, personally, honored to be a part of something much bigger. So I wanted to do that. I also, though, admittedly, want to cook the perfect omelet, like I do, and if that, guilty as charged.
Do you have to take a crash course, though, when you come back about what's going on in the world of sports? Or are you, when you're with GMA, following it as regularly as you did back at the mothership?
That's the thing. So it's not a crash course, but it is interesting. Like, right, to live a life where you say, I have to watch this game for work.
Yeah.
Right. And
that 2 a.m. Memphis Grizzlies, Atlanta Hawks
got to
game.
do it, right? And there were a lot, I actually slept a lot less even when I was doing the morning sports centers. At Good Morning America, a 4 a.m. wake up is just, it wins. As hard as you fight it, like in the end, it wins every time. So you end up having to go to bed really in the 9 o'clock hour. And thus, the West Coast is just, it's something you read about the next morning. And as a LA guy, that's hard. You lose all of those games. And it also, again, makes me wonder, how do East Coast kids, especially back in the day when we didn't have the internet, like, how did you become sports fans? Like, there's no such thing as East Coast bias. It's more like, with all due respect, it's sort of East Coast ignorance. Like, you'd wake up and you wouldn't know what had happened on the West Coast the night before. So everything was always coming a day later. So it's not a crash course. It's just, you get to stay up. You can watch more games. You can at least watch the tips. You can at least watch, I can throw on Vin for the first 3 innings, at Dodger Stadium. You just start doing it again. But I never left it. Sports became, especially when I was at Good Morning America, more of an escape than it had ever been. So no, it's more of the Triple Crown, doing the Kentucky Derby, and it's coming up here the first Saturday in May, has always been, that was a sport I always loved. It was like the perfect amount of horse racing for me growing up. And so it's been thrilling. And as you know, the people at NBC Sports, the degree of excellence, like across the board, no matter what sport you drop into. I'm going to be at the Players Championship the week after the Kentucky Derby, working with the golf team. I mean, it's the level of excellence that they demand is unlike anything I've ever been around. And Sunday Night Football, week 1, you climb onto the shuttle to the game, and you're looking around, and there's Fred Gaudelli and Drew Esikoff, the greatest producer to have ever produced a football game, the greatest director there has ever been. And then here comes Al, and then Bob, Chris, Michelle, and you're like, what am I doing here? Did I get on the wrong bus?
Kind of left someone off that list, Josh.
I'll get there. Oh yeah, no. Then the guy's back in Stamp. That's the thing.
Oh,
right?
no.
No.
You weren't leaving.
No. But then then that's the thing. You got Tony,
right?
You got Rodney,
right?
And you got Dan. I mean, and I've interviewed Tony for years and years, and Rodney was one of my favorite subjects when he was a Charger, and then when he got to the Patriots. And so, you're out there, you're tossing it back to a phenomenal studio show who are throwing it back to a phenomenal team on site. And it's been great. It was a great year. It beats working for a living. I mean, what can I say? It beats working for a living. And I've been able to put my daughters on the bus every morning. So, it was a strange thing to transition, but now that I'm back, I'm blessed. To say I'm blessed is to undersell the degree of luck. I mean, I'm like the blindest squirrel finding like the best nuts you can imagine.
We're going to take a break. When we come back, I want to ask you about being a Laker fan in today's day and age and the future of Kobe Bryant in Los Angeles. I want to get your take on Adrian Peterson and that situation.
You want to ask me about like my paper cut that I just got to?
He's Josh Elliott, NBC Sports. Be right back. We're back. Dan Patrick Show. Josh Elliott, NBC Sports, kind enough to join us here in studio. You were talking before we came back from break about Phillip Rivers and these trade rumors around him. Would you deal up if you're the Chargers to get Marcus Mariota to flip Phillip Rivers?
I'm all, bird in hand. I think Marcus Mariota has a chance, right, to be great. He might have been a really great system quarterback at Oregon, running around, chucking the ball, being good. Admittedly, I don't spend too much time watching, like pro days on TV, like workouts. Like that's where you asked about, like, how much do you catch up to what the sports world is now? That's like one of those things where you feel like an unfrozen caveman lawyer. You're like, wait, what? We literally watch practice now. We watch like completely like climate controlled passing drills, and then we all freak out and we decide, oh my God, wait, that guy's vaulting up a board. Phillip Rivers is terrific. Phillip Rivers has been great for the Chargers for a lot of years, and when the Chargers don't win, it is rarely because of Phillip Rivers. So if I was a win, especially if I was a win now team, and I think that's the idea, right? Too, like the thing with the NFL is it's a win now league. There's no, you don't. I don't know that a fan base necessarily allows like, hey, we're going to tank. Like the 76ers couldn't happen in the NFL. The fans would be like, you're out. Like, and think about that, right? Think about the city that happens in.
Yeah.
Like, you think Chip Kelly could go in and say, hey guys, you know what? We're just going to not be very good for, 2-3 years, but we're going to be good at the end of that. And it's going to position us for some great draft picks.
Well, think about what your Lakers did this year, though.
Yeah, which is
that was
awful.
That wasn't Sixer level because it's only 1 year, but could you recognize the lineup the Lakers were putting out there at the end of the year?
I'm not a bettor, and I certainly wouldn't. I could never bet on my own teams, and so I think about some of the money I missed out on, like when USC in the early aughts was just running. But I begged everybody I knew to take every last penny if you were going to Las Vegas and you were doing this legally, and get on that Lakers under. It was like at 31
under for the wins this year.
This year. I'm like, I don't know in what alternate universe. Like if I missed a headline that they are now playing 152 games in an NBA season, maybe they'll get to 31 wins. But there was no way before opening day lineup. There was no way. They are just like one big expiring contract. So,
do you have any issue with the way Kobe's kind of going out here?
Issue. That's the way it goes. Our mutual friend Chris Ballard has done some great Kobe specific work in Sports Illustrated, and he's been a complicated figure. So good. I think he will be. I don't know that there will be an NBA player, maybe other than Wilt, who will ever be more just sort of chronically underappreciated. I don't know that we're gonna, just because of things that happened away from basketball, like earlier in his career, but even the way things went at the best, at the Lakers' heights, like there was always this feeling of complexity to him that I think made him hard to sort of cozy up to, but great, sublime player. And so is it hard to watch it? I mean, he's a fighter. He wants to be on the court. He's carry him off on a shield guy.
Yeah.
There was no question that was ever going to be the case. Was I troubled? I mean, it's not my money, but was I troubled by the deal of a couple of years ago that is now hamstring? Yes, of course. But I'm, and I also am of the opinion that American sport tends to be strangely, pay for what they've done, not for what they might do.
Mm-hmm.
But again, I also am completely sympathetic to players who are, in the end, always the employees of much richer people. Like, get what you can get. And so Kobe did. And the Lakers, nobody, dragged them gun to the head to make that deal. As a Lakers fan, did you think, it's going to make it tougher? I thought it was very interesting in the Matt Barnes piece by Chris Ballard in Sports Illustrated.
It's the greatest Chris Ballard promo he's had
on newsstands now. But that Matt Barnes said, almost in passing, this idea that free agents don't want to play with Kobe is overrated, if not, or if just untrue. That it's the Lakers front office that makes people not want to be there. So it's tough. As a Lakers fan, it's tough. But you know what? As a Lakers fan, the Nick Van Exel, Sedale 3 years were not highly, when Cedric Ceballos was out there just, making all sorts of layups and followed layups. And, those were tough years. But then look what happens. I mean, I just think, the Lakers are always going to be the Lakers.
If you're if Kobe Bryant says after next season, he says, there's still something left in the tank here.
Oh, yeah.
I'd like to come back. If you're the Lakers, do you have to? Do you have to bring him back?
Do you have to bring him back? The dreaded optics now, right? So the dreaded visual, like what is it? Or would they be forcing him out to pasture? You probably do. It's not going to I don't know what you're bringing him back. I mean, in terms of basketball, I don't know what you can expect. I actually do know what you can expect. Mm-hmm. He'll have some high volume shooting nights. He will plant, and one of his very worn, legs something will go, and then he'll be again carried off on that shield metaphorically, and that will not be a pretty sight. I would hope that you always, you don't want to see that happen. But let's be honest, that's what happens. And when you see a great be not great anymore because their body won't let them, I would love it if Kobe would come back and on a cost conscious contract that would kind of allow him to just be a mentor. But I don't know if that's possible because I don't know if he's, he has always struck me as also one of those players who could never coach because it would just drive him crazy. Like it drives him crazy that everybody's not either as good as he is or doesn't want to carve the still beating hearts out of his opponents and beat them like he does. And so that as for what drives him becomes, I think it runs counter to the building of a team and the ultimate success of a team. So at that point, I think it becomes a situation where it gets tougher to bring him back.
It's Josh Elliott, NBC Sports. He's on the Kentucky Derby coverage for NBC on May 2nd. We're up against the break, but I appreciate you coming by.
That's it? We're not going to talk any Kentucky Derby?
We've got Bradley Beal coming up next.
Okay.
And it's,
all right.
I'm
proud of you.
I've got to cater to.
I'm proud of you.
I appreciate that. Likewise, my friend.
Awesome.
We'll have to do this in a more casual setting at some point.
Yes, Rosie O'Grady's.
Rosie O'Grady's. Perhaps we can bring it all back. Bring the band back together.
54th and 7th. If you're there, Midtown, literally go downstairs. You'll never get back up.
Josh Elliott, NBC Sports, will be on NBC's Kentucky Derby coverage on May 2nd.